Halito, and welcome to Native Chalk Talk, a podcast by natives for all. Here we're keeping our Native ancestors' stories and history alive while also sharing with you our Native cultures, traditions, and more. I'm Rachel Youngman, a Choctaw originally from Anadarko, Oklahoma. I hope you'll enjoy this journey with me as we learn from our Native American guests. And stay tuned for the end of each episode where we'll talk about some great ways to support Native causes and or Native-owned businesses. Let's get started. But first, a word from our sponsor.
The Choctaw Nation has always provided a foundation upon which a future can be built. From our home in southeast Oklahoma to a bingo hall that grew to be one of the largest casinos in the world. Today's summer school programs lay the groundwork for a love of learning. Small business programs support local economies. And with over 10,000 jobs created, Choctaw offers financial stability to tribal members and our neighbors. Together we build success, because together we're more.
Hey, y'all. I hope you'll enjoy this conversation that was totally impromptu with Coach James Nells from Riverside Indian School. I was there one day visiting Terry Ware, and Coach Nells came in and we started talking about his family history. And I was like, stop right there. Can I just record you? So he allowed me to do so. And so you'll notice that we kind of start in the middle of a conversation in this recording, but it was definitely well worth it. And I hope you'll enjoy learning a lot more about the Navajo and about Coach Nell's life. He led a very interesting life, and he is a veteran, so we thank him for his service. Yakoki, y'all. Enjoy. James, you are a coach here at Riverside Indian School, correct?
Yes, I am.
And how long have you been here?
This is my 15th year.
All right.
And before we go, can I go and introduce myself properly?
Please
traditionally, I'm a full-blooded Navajo, born in Winslow, Arizona, raised on the Navajo Reservation, and went to boarding school in New Mexico. But traditionally, we were taught to go and say our clans, so I would say, Yat James Nells, Inch, yeah, Ishihin Inchle, Bit Atni Bashish Chin, Sitna Jinish Che, Klash Chi, Dashanale. And what that says is, hello, my name is James Nells. I'm Salt Clan, born under his cover clan. My paternal or my mother's side grandparents are Blackstreak people, or Blackstreak in the Wood, and then my dad's side, that clan is Red Bottom people, and that's how I identify myself. And then that's how the creators or the divine people above know you also in our ways too. So, and then one of the things that is about that too is when you go to an audience and you introduce yourself, you might be introducing yourself to some of your relatives, so you got to have that respect. And then
wow.
Something that's sort of funny about that too is that when you introduce yourself and you run across a beautiful young lady, or if you're a lady and you run across a handsome man, you might be related, so you can't have no relationship. So
you really got to be thorough, especially because the Native American communities are so small.
Yeah, but that's how we properly introduce ourselves.
That's beautiful. I love that, to go back that. And then you do have to know your heritage, because you have to introduce yourself that way. So with the Black Streak in the Wood, can you explain more about that to me?
It's a clan, and I'm not too sure how we've got I can't remember the exact numbers of clans, but we have all kinds of different clans. And some of the old clans that originated from the beginning have sort of extinct out. Like I believe there's one called Ishihin, which is a Salt clan, the same, but it's now Ishi, and it's still a Salt clan, but the original saying and the original clan has sort of subsided and died out, and it's now, I guess, the Salt itself. I don't know how to really explain that, but it continues on, And
I just wondered if they got their name from being stealthier in the woods or something. Who knows?
Yeah, there's always a story behind these things. So I was never really given that. And then just like there's many different clans. There's some like Twatsotni, or different things that's talking about maybe the area or the people that are around that area, mud, water, and stuff like this. So it varies, you know. There's a lot of different clans, and then you got some that are coming from different surrounding Native American people, like you know, maybe some of them Amish people that we got ourselves involved with way back. We developed a clan from that and stuff like that. So each one of those clans has a meaning and a beginning. So,
and it's so far back. I mean, it's so far back. Who would even know what Blackstreak means at this point? So interesting. And so you said that you grew up on the Navajo Reservation, and tell us a little bit about the Navajo as far as the area that they were in and the area they're in now.
Well, we believe in our 4 sacred mountains, and our people were basically in between those mountains, and they were protected and blessed with them, you know. And you got one that is called Tsinajin, which is going to the east, and then to the south is Sotzith, which is Mount Taylor going to the south, and then the Kosalid, which is San Francisco Cook Peaks in the west, and then the Bennettsaw, which is in the north in Colorado, which is a big sheep mountain, I guess you'd say. Then we've got 2 others in the center. So we evolved from that area. It's in around Arizona, New Mexico, Four Corners area, you know. And we had a large portion of land, but when the Calvaries got involved and sort of had some confrontations with us, our land sort of shrunk, and we were marched to Fort Sumner, New Mexico, way back in the 1800s, 1864, back around that time period, and Kit Carson helped go and round our people up. But not all Navajos surrendered.
Yeah.
You know, a portion of them surrendered and went on to Fort Sumner. The rest that stayed away and didn't surrender, they stayed in our general area there, and they survived. And about 4 years later, we were released back to our original homeland. But at that time, they gave us a smaller area.
Yeah.
So, you know, we never really got defeated in a sense. And we're still proud people. We still hang on to our beliefs and our traditions as much as we can. And we try to teach our younger people all these things. And nowadays, education's important. Reading and writing and the English language is pretty predominant, and you have to have that to survive in today's world. But back home on a reservation, we should learn our ways too in our language. And that was our first language growing up. But nowadays it's changed a whole lot.
Sure. So, and was it for you, your first language growing up?
Yeah, it was. Parents were basically uneducated, but they went to school some and learned a little, but didn't really go far beyond. In fact, I was the first one in my family to go on to college, and there's 4 of us siblings, 2 that didn't graduate from high school, and my oldest sister and I were the only ones to go and graduate. I went on to college and then graduated from college, and then the rest of my sisters followed along, and they eventually took some college classes and got their GEDs and stuff like this too. So
that's awesome.
My oldest sister became a nurse, went to nursing school, and so it's pretty good.
Yeah,
you know, so
I'd say that's pretty good, actually. Yeah.
Especially when you think about the background that we evolved from. Our parents were alcoholics, and you know, it was a tough life growing up. But you know what? I didn't really see it as a tough life. It was an experience, learning one, and when it came down to it, we still loved our mom and our dad, no matter what hardships they might have brought us. But when everybody was sober and happy, we were a loving family, and we cared for one another.
Yeah.
And we've lost our parents since, but my sisters and I, we still come together and we try to help one another and love one another. And when I take my family back to New Mexico, we go and have my sisters and us go see a medicine man for prayers and blessings. So we carry on that tradition. I am married to a Cheyenne Arapaho lady. Her name's Daisy Alana Pratt, and now her last name Nells. We have 7 kids, 5 boys and 2 daughters. They all participate in the Arapaho side, and they all sing and dance, and we travel to the United States. My daughter Lena was Miss Indian Oklahoma in 2002, I think it was.
Awesome.
And my oldest daughter Lena and my youngest son Elijah have been in the military. I myself was a military
Oh, thank you for your service.
officer. Yeah, so
What service were you in?
Army, the United States Army, and so were they.
Great.
So it was pretty good. But
Yeah.
but I try to pass on all this information to my kids in our Navajo ways, and they participate in our Navajo ceremonials. And then we travel up to Wyoming, Ethiopia, Wyoming, for my wife's side of the family, and participate in their ceremonials up there. We carry on a lot of our traditional ways and try to help out too.
And in a time when there are so few that do actually participate in the traditional ways, although I feel like the pendulum's kind of swinging the other way. Do you? I mean, I feel like I'm starting to see people wanting to pick up the language more and that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm seeing where they're beginning to feel a little bit more pride in themselves, in their tribe, and they're trying to identify or find out who they are, where they come from. And that's one of the things I always, try to tell my students, be proud of who you are, where you come from, ask your grandparents, who you are, or, how to say certain things, and just the different little things that mean a lot in life, So I go and try and emphasize that, respect for the elders and stuff. So
when it comes to your time you went to a boarding school in New Mexico. What was the name of it?
it was Fort Wingate, New Mexico, and I spent my high school years there, 9th through 12th, and I was pretty successful, but I hate to say this, but it's true. I was an alcoholic at the time. I was drinking already.
You were young, huh?
And I was young. I started in 4th grade, believe it or not. I stole from my parents and started drinking back then.
Yeah.
And I was in 5th and 6th grade drinking with a lot of Vietnam veterans coming back, And, so it just carried on all through high school and into college, but I was still successful.
Yeah, you're functioning.
And I think that a lot had to do with the prayer and the spirits and not getting lost in that manner. I prayed all the time, and I still do that all the time, pray. And I've been sober since May 1st, 1986.
Congratulations.
I met my wife, we got married, and after 2 years of marriage, she said, look, I want you to stop your drinking and be more of a father and a caretaker, a husband, and be responsible, take care of us, or get out of my life and you won't have to worry about us. So I didn't want to go down the same road my parents were, So I finally quit. And I'm very grateful I did, and was successful too. So
that's powerful, and really a great opportunity for those who may be listening that may have struggled with the same thing or be struggling with it right now, that people can change, right? I mean, people, and it's day by day, I know, but congratulations.
Yeah. When I was in boarding school, before I got to boarding school, I was in a foster home for a couple of years too. And I sort of ran off from that place too, and went back to the reservation. But I started running, and that's something that I became successful about, And when I was in 7th and 8th grade, I was up in Utah, and became a pretty good runner and carried on to high school. And high school, my high school coach, Mr. Dewey Bowling, made a lot of difference. He was my mentor, and I wanted to eventually be like him. And he was a non-native ex-pro football player. And he, my freshman year, I made it to state high school track championships, and I took second at state. And at that time, my coach, Mr. Bowling, said, "Hey, James, I was going to resign this year, but I'm going to stay with you until you graduate, and together we're going to break that 2-mile state record." And I didn't think much about it, and I just agreed with him, and he did that. He stayed with me until I graduated.
Gives me goosebumps.
My senior year, we beat that 2-mile state record, but I got beaten at the same time and came in second. And yet I was pretty successful. I got a scholarship and went on to college and made All-American in college. And my sophomore year, I wanted to be like Dewey Bowling. I wanted to work with Native American kids in a boarding school, and I wanted to coach. And that's what I do nowadays.
How often do people say, I want to do that? And this is such a narrow niche. The fact that, Riverside 15 years ago had an opening, you took it.
Yep.
That's amazing.
Well, I owe a lot to Mr. Dearman, Tony Dearman on that part. I was working at Sequoia after I got out of the military, and I was helping coach there, and he's seen how successful we were, and he came over here as the superintendent and principal and superintendent, and about a year later he asked me if I wanted to come over. He wanted me to start the cross-country program like we had at Sequoia, so I did that, and I've been here since. And within them 15 years, I was 3 times runner-up with the boys, and third one time and fourth twice, and I had state champions and had a lot of all-staters and a lot of honorable mention all-staters. So I feel pretty successful with our program here.
It's great. Congratulations,
Thank you.
and to your runners. And so you are living the dream right now here at Riverside. And do you see kids that in your, kind of mimic what you were going through at one time?
I see a lot of that, and I try to go and explain to them, that they have every opportunity to do something with their life, just like I did, and they have no one to blame except themselves as far as they go in life. The world might be crumbling down around them. They might go and have parents that are dysfunctional. Say, just like in my case, alcoholic parents, but that's no excuse. You make that choice to go as far as you want. And I realize that, and I tell them those things. And I don't try to hide the fact that I was an alcoholic. I don't try to hide the fact that my parents were alcoholics, and that at one time in our lives we didn't have no electricity or running water and stuff like this. And I was embarrassed to run to the trading post and get kerosene for our kerosene lamps, And sometimes there was hardly no food at all, and I had a younger sister I had to take care of. So with all that, the people that I go and teach, some of them coming from the same background, I tell them that there's no excuse, There's always a way to get out of there. It's up to them. So,
wow.
And I'm willing to go and work with them as much as I can. And believe it or not, I've got some that graduated from here, when I first got here, that I stay in contact with, and they say that I'm still their father figure to them and help them. And then they introduce me to their family, and they say, "This is your grandpa." So it makes me feel good.
I know. It's like, how do you not get teary-eyed over that?
So
wow. You mentioned that you were on the reservation, and there were some challenging times. You ran away, you went to foster care, and then you went to the boarding school, which ended up setting you into this new path. And so that's very inspiring, obviously, especially for people who may have had similar situations in their lives, to see now that you're a successful coach and you have this team that's doing really well. But going back to the reservation itself, you mentioned that sometimes there was no electricity and no food. And I think that's what most people in this country think of when they think of a reservation. Some do better than others. Some reservations have better living arrangements than others. But it sounds like in your case, yours was kind of that stereotypical scenario.
Yeah, it was to a certain extent, but our grandfather, his name was Hatkali Hashkeh, which means mean medicine man. And he always used to tell us as we were growing up, and especially I'd help him get his medicine bag ready too, but jish, it's called jish, and I'd help him get it ready. But he told me along the way, means which like go to a higher level of school or college in a sense, but yet he was uneducated and he didn't speak nothing but Navajo, and he's wise in his, I guess, in his mind and wisdom, and he could see a lot that's happened, and so he told me to do that, and I always held that, I guess, in my heart and this stuff. So
yeah,
and I never reflected on it until I got later on in life, and start realizing, hey, I need to do something with my life. And a lot of times growing up on a reservation, we go and have grudges against the government because of this and that or whatever else, all the hardships, but we didn't live at that in them times. I could always have used those as an excuse to be unsuccessful or excuse to go and not go to school and all this stuff, but I didn't hold it against them, and I still don't. I chose to go and live the life that I'm living, and I'm taking care of my family and my kids and my grandkids, and what happened in the past I can't change that. It's there, it's history. We've got to move forward. And I always tell the kids, when they say they want to help their family out, I say the best way to help their family is get educated, go to college, and then once you're successful that way, go back and help your family. So,
totally.
Help
yourself first, and then you can help pick other people up.
And a lot of them come up with that excuse, well, I want to go home, I want to leave school, I want to go home and find a job and help out. Well, they didn't have a job to begin with, and it was easy. I tell them, and whether it hurts or not, I tell them, your family send you over here to Riverside for a certain reason, so that they could go and you could have a bed to sleep in, food to eat, and they don't have to worry about you for all that hardships going on at home,
Right.
So, and I tried to tell them that, but hey, if you don't like what's going on with the government too, go to college, get educated, then make a change, So maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I feel.
I think that's great advice. Absolutely. So you went into the Army, and how many years did you serve?
I spent 8 years, 4 months, and 10 days in the military.
Counted by the day.
When I joined the military, I was still single, but I graduated from Central State University, which is in Edmond, which is now UCO, and I realized I wasn't mature enough or ready to go and be a teacher. I was still drinking and being wild and doing some things that I shouldn't be doing, and I decided that I better do something else for the time being because I didn't want to get in trouble as a teacher.
Yeah.
So I met my wife after I graduated, and then I joined the military and spent 8 years there. I went to OCS and became an officer, and I got my Ranger tab, and I jumped out of airplanes, and I led my men through Iraq and during Desert Storm, and so I felt pretty successful. And at that time, I had stopped drinking and everything else too, so
yeah,
I was pretty clear in my thoughts and mind and training and what I wanted to do and how I wanted to lead my men, and so I was pretty happy.
When you'd gotten to that point in the service, did you ever look back and go, I'm the kid that ran away from home and I was in this foster care system? And did you ever look back and go, how did I get here?
No, I never really looked back on that, I can't change it. It's good to go and, I guess, look back and reflect on it, but I always want to go forward with my life and do the right thing and make the right choices and then raise my kids the same way. I could tell them how I was, and then I say, hey, don't drink and don't drive or don't go and do these things. And, I guess cliche, well, you did it, Dad. Well, I did it. That's why I'm telling
That's why I'm telling you not to do it.
Yeah. But,
do as I say, not as I do.
I'm sure they all had their times to try and do these things,
Yeah.
And as a parent and as a grandparent too, all I can do now is love them. And I think that our family's pretty successful. They all graduated from high school, and 2 graduated from college. They all got a taste of college, and they have families of their own, and they're all working. And so
that's great. Are they all here in Oklahoma?
No, we're sort of spread out different ways. And I think that what my wife and I instilled in our kids is coming back, in a good way. We always tell them help out each other's, and I always tell them in our Navajo ways, you're always going to help your mother no matter what. Always help your mom, always help your mom. So they go and try to help their mom out, and every once in a while my kids will try to say some money, and I always tell them, hey, well, give it to mom, she needs it,
Yeah.
And so it's pretty good. And I have some that, some son that bought my wife washers and dryers, and they all pitched in and
nice.
Do different things like that.
They're good kids. Did a good job, Dad.
Well, let me tell you this story real quick. I think it was our 25th anniversary, and our kids always used to say when they were growing up, they were small, Mom, Dad, we want to buy you a house. And my oldest son would say, I want to buy Mom a 4x4 truck and stuff like that. So anyway, our son was up in Wyoming, and he was living up there with his wife. And around our 25th anniversary, we were up there. We were going to our tribal ceremonials up there to Sundance in E16, Wyoming. And our kids told us, hey, Mom, Dad, come to the living room. And we were at Riverton. Come to the living room and sit down, close your eyes, don't peek. So we sat there, my wife and I, and we heard this commotion going on, and you could hear thuds and it sounded like sticks on stick and stuff like that. So we just kept our eyes closed, and about maybe 10 minutes later, they said, okay, go ahead, open your eyes. And we opened our eyes, and there laid a half rolled out teepee, and there laid the stakes and the pins and the rope and everything else. And they said, Mom, Dad, 25th anniversary, we always told you that we'd buy you a house, 20-foot brand new teepee. Then they took us in their backyards. They had the teepee poles out there that they went and got themselves too.
I love that.
So it was pretty unique and pretty nice.
I bought my mom a plant.
So it was good.
That's
they bought us over our
beautiful.
house, And,
I love that.
it was good, yeah.
They're
And
so
it's still
good.
Yeah. So it made our day. And August 11th, my wife and I celebrated our 37th anniversary. So
Congratulations.
it's pretty good.
Wow, that's awesome. What's the secret to a happy, healthy marriage?
I guess trusting in each other's and believing each other's and telling each other's you love them, And I don't know. I love my wife, and I tell her that every chance I get, and she's vice versa, and we meet each other's 50-50, I believe, and I try to give her breaks, and when the kids were small, I try to give her time and all, and vice versa. She'd go and try and give me my time, but I tried to give her a lot more freedom, especially when I was in the military. I spent a lot of time away from the family and missed a lot of holidays and missed a lot of anniversaries and birthdays and stuff like this. And my wife had it pretty hard when we were in Iraq. She had to be there for the family and the kids, and
I bet, yeah.
she went and served her time in a sense, And as a military person, a lot of times we fail to realize what the wife and how strong they are when they're backing up their service man, especially if they're in the combat zone, And that's what she was, and she had to be strong for the family and stuff. So I really appreciate her help in that sense,
What a trooper. So, I love that you've paid that tribute to her. I'm sure she appreciates that. So what's her name again?
Honey.
Honey, her name's Honey. Honey,
Yeah.
happy anniversary.
Yeah. It's Daisy, Ilana.
Daisy.
So, yeah. So,
Well, to Daisy and James, we say congratulations.
yeah.
So, part of Native Choctaw's purpose is to make sure we help preserve our ancestors' stories and also just share our own stories. And you have done that. Is there anything that you can think of that you'd like to share about your mom, your dad, your grandparents?
Well, let me tell you a real quick story. Our Navajo name, Nells. Nells isn't a Navajo name. It was
I bet.
given to us in a sense, and it derives from a story that was passed on. Our great-great-grandfather, I guess you'd say, his name was Dishtone, or Gunner, and he had 2 sons, and they did a terrible thing on the Navajo reservation at a trading post and apparently burned it down and this stuff as the story goes. And then they were incarcerated, when they were children. Well, when they went to jail or was incarcerated, a lawyer by the last name of Nells went took them under their wings and represented them and gave them their last name, and they were asked to choose their first names, and one was John and one was
Of course, I
John
know, right?
Nells, yeah. John and I can't even think of anyway, they were twin sons,
Yeah.
They were sons for the Dana Gunner, and it slipped my mind, but anyway, John was our grandfather, and
Oh, wow.
out at Sebidakai, and long story short, that lawyer represented them, and they were able to go and obtain that name Nells from that lawyer.
Huh.
And I guess it's maybe a Scandinavian name or something.
Wow.
So it's not a real Navajo name, but yeah. And John Nells was our grandfather out at Sebidakai, and he's pretty good. So,
Wow.
but their
That's an
name,
interesting
their
story.
dad was Dishtone, or Gunner, and his picture is very well known on a postcard and this stuff, and he's I guess in history books too.
Mm-hmm.
So that's just a long story short.
That's pretty interesting.
So anyway, he did that, and John Nell was out at Sebidakai, and he worked in a boarding school, and his wife was Louise. Go visit them and have fun, and my dad was out there. His name is Edward, and as we were growing up on the reservation, we did a lot of herding sheep and riding horses and
Yeah.
running around out there and haul wood and water, and then I remember my grandfather, who had a wooden wagon too, and we'd play with that wagon when they were away. We'd hook up the horses to them, and we'd go get them running. But we did that because we had ropes and we had some old tires. We tied it to the back of those wagons, and one of them be horse and wagon. The
awesome.
rest of us be sitting on that tire in the back, being dragged along. We used to be naughty
love
in the
those
sense
stories.
that, so it was pretty good. We had fun, and we'd help out at different ceremonials. And one time we were at what they call a squaw dance, and they had this one tent full of supplies, food supplies, and they had those flowers in their bags of flour. Well, there were several pigs around there that got into it, so we were chasing those pigs around the dance area and trying to rope them, and we were just kids and having fun, and all those things were all wonderful memories and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And as we were growing up, all the young men slept outside underneath a chaho or a shade house, and we'd sleep there all summer long and this stuff, and have fun with that. And we'd get up in the morning, you'd hear them say, the bitch in this not cod, they'd tell us that, hey, you guys get up, let the sheep out, go herd sheep. Or else some mornings you wake up, so they'll zen, they'd tell us, get up, pray, before the sun come up, and just barely a white streak along the mountains there. We'd be out praying and stuff like that. Or else some mornings you hear in your sleep, you hear that sound. And you hear the women talking. And what they were doing was they'd be making breakfast in a sense, you know. And they'd be making that bread, and you could hear that fire crackle. And sometimes you smell that coffee, and you wake up and stretch and stuff. And it's beautiful. Those are all good memories. And
that is
during the winter time, we'd have a single room home at my grandmother's place too. And all the adults would be on the bed or the couch or whatever was available, and all us kids would be bedded down on the floors, you know, on what they call it the permeated, you know, and it's the sheep wool that they went save after they butchered the sheep, and it's got thick wool, and you just put a sheet over it, and it was like a cushion, you know. We'd be there, and they'd have that fireplace, and you'd have your cedar wood inside that fireplace, and you'd smell that cedar, and your grandparents and your mom and dad would be talking, and they'd be telling stories in Navajo, and that stove would have like 3 vents, and you'd see that fire dancing on the wall, and you'd fall asleep somewhere along the way. And it was beautiful, you know.
I love
good
this.
memories.
I can picture all of it.
Yeah, so it was always good, you know. Or else sometimes we'd be helping in my grandparents, or they'd be singing. You'd sit up all night long, you know, maybe holding an instrument in your hand to help give strength and blessing to that person that's being sung on, you know, and you had to do your part too. So there's a lot of things. We were taught a lot of things here recently. When they had that total eclipse of the sun or whatever, and I was here at Riverside. I took all the Navajo kids to my room. We closed up all the windows and doors, and we sat still, and we couldn't go to sleep. We couldn't be noisy or running around. We couldn't eat or drink nothing during that eclipse, you know. This is the way it's supposed to be, you know. So we were supposed to be holy during that time. So I did that in my classroom. The school here at Riverside allowed that, and we had some of the parents from back home call and ask about stuff like that. When we was growing up in high school, we didn't really dissect in our classes, you know, because it's against our beliefs, and we were able to go and get away with some of that stuff, you know. But it's sort of crazy, but you know.
So you weren't supposed to dissect because of your culture.
You're not supposed to cut on things like that, and especially you know, frogs or anything like that. You know, it's
unless you're eating it. Or something.
Well, we don't even eat that too. In our Navajo ways, you don't eat those kind of things. But they say that it comes back in your later life and makes you sick and causes all this stuff, you know. So, and there's certain reasons that you can't look at the moon or the sun and those eclipses and this stuff. It's going to cause you sickness in a sense, you know. And here recently, about 2 years ago, at my house in Tahlequah area, we had a big old tree there that got struck by lightning. And so we had some prayers done, and I, as a Navajo, couldn't cut that tree down and couldn't touch it and this stuff because we believed that it's going to cause cancer. So I told my kids that, and they were laughing at me. Hey, Dad, we're Arapahoes, you know.
Doesn't apply to us, so we can get it.
Yeah, we'll get it. I started laughing. I said, "Don't do that. You're still part Navajo." And you know, the neighbor came over several days later. Well, you know, about maybe 2 months later, I said, "Hey, what are you gonna do about that tree?" I said, "Well," he goes, I said, "Nothing." And I explained to him about that. He goes, "Well, I'll cut it down if you don't mind, and I'll take it." You know.
Nice.
So he did that.
Took care of it.
Yeah,
Has he gotten sick?
I don't know. He's a Cherokee guy, but
he'll be all right.
yeah. And then you know what? We grew up eating a lot of mutton and butchering and stuff like that, sheep and stuff like that. And another funny story: had our kids went out to my dad's place, Sabadalkai, Arizona, and we butchered a sheep, and I gave my kids the stomach, and I said, "Hey, go take that stomach way over there, and dump the insides, and then bring back the stomach," you know. Well, my two sons went over there, and I guess they came walking back, and their hands were sticking out because the content of the stomach was all over their hands, and it was dirty. And I said, hey, what'd you guys do with the darn stomach? I said, we just threw it over there in the dirt. I said, what do you mean? You're supposed to clean it. Oh, I got mad. I said, go get it. You know? And so they went back over there, and that stomach was sort of damp, so it picked up all that dirt, and it was like a mud ball. It brought back that mud ball. By that time, I got mad.
Can't take you all anywhere.
One of my sons, can't take you nowhere. One of my sons said, Dad, I got an old stick, man. I got mad. He goes, I'm not Navajo. So I got mad. Well, I got that stick, and I struck my son in the thigh, and that stick just shattered. And he looked at me, and he said, that's my Arapaho side, Dad. Oh, there's nothing I could do nothing
There's
about
nothing
it.
you could say to that. You know, it was pretty brilliant if you think about it.
It was beautiful, but they used that stomach to make blood sausage. So
oh, they do.
yeah,
Okay.
when they butchered, they saved the blood and they make blood sausage, and that's what they were going to use for.
Except he threw it in the dirt and it became a big mud ball. So
yeah, we had cleaned. Well, it was funny. We do stuff like that, so they had fun with it. So
it's my Arapaho, Dad.
But, I love my kids and my family.
They
We
sound
have fun.
great.
Yeah.
They really do.
But on my wife's side, we participate in her Arapaho side, and we used to travel up Wyoming quite a bit. They're ceremonial people, and they help take care of a lot of Sundance Lodge, and our kids grew up helping set them up and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then we all sang, did powwows, and we had our own drum called Little Thunder Singers, traveled to the United States and some into Canada, and they were all pretty much champion dancers themselves too, so it was pretty good. We composed
Do you dance?
some songs. Yeah, I do, man, and
Knock on wood. I hear you.
No, I'm a traditional dancer. Well, anyway.
Well, I knew you were in shape for running, but I didn't. Oh my God. That was funny. Can't say as I've partaken in that, but I don't judge.
No, I was gonna see how you're gonna react.
So, why there's so many ones in your wallet?
Yep.
Oh my God.
That was a good one. Anyway.
Never ask James if he dances.
Yeah, but we did that. We all traveled all over the United States singing and dancing and doing stuff like that. So
Nice.
And we have fun with that, and we still do that.
Yeah. And so, do you do the Navajo dances or the Arapaho or Cheyenne?
I've done some help dance in Navajo style, but more ceremonial, like squaw dance. And then my dad
Are you
used
saying
to,
squaw dance?
yeah, squaw dance,
Okay.
but it's not a really true statement of what it is. Those are
Yeah.
dances that are done for ceremonial purposes, and there's different types of those dances. And
Yeah.
one that they did for me is called the enemy way, or anaja, and it's done for your veterans when they come back from
Okay.
the
Yeah.
military. And it's in general, those dances are called squaw dances, but they all have their different meaning. They're done for different reasons, and that enemy way is done to cleanse the soldier or the military person from all the evil that they might have encountered, their smell, their taste, their touch, anything that they've seen. It's getting all that bad stuff away. They call it, I guess, the chidi, which is like it's ghosts and this stuff. And you don't want to have all this flashback and all these elements from what you
Interesting.
experience. So that's why you have that enemy way ceremony. And they did that for me too. So
What an honor to have
Yeah,
someone
so-
do that for you.
well, mainly it's to go on continue good, healthy spiritual life and be in harmony with life itself.
Yeah.
So they did that to go
I
on.
love that.
make me a well person.
Yeah.
I guess one of the beliefs behind that is if a military personnel don't go and have this done, they become like a lost soul. And then you hear a lot of them having flashbacks of going on, becoming alcoholics, into drugs and this stuff, and some even ending their lives. It's because they never came back into harmony with life. Mm-hmm. And they don't get rid of that evil that was against them, or the spirit of the enemy, the ghost of the enemy. So that's what it is. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. I cleansed myself, and then I went through my wife's side, the Sundance, and purified myself too, and got blessed that way for my family and myself too, and for others.
That's nice. Yeah. I like that.
Different.
Yeah. Do you know much about your parents' background? Where are they from? Are they from?
Okay, my mother was from around Cedar Springs, Arizona. She was raised from around there. My dad was from around Sebrock, Iowa. Originally, I guess they sort of came from Chinle area and moved out towards Sebrock. That's all in Arizona. And my mom was trying to go to school, and I think she only got to like 6th grade or something like that. My dad was older than my mom. One day, the story goes that my mom came back for like Christmas break, and my grandmother told my mom, pack up all your stuff, clothes and this stuff. And she did sort of baffled about that, didn't understand why. But what happened while she was at school was that my dad asked for her hand in marriage, and he paid a bracelet and I guess a few other items for my mom.
Oh, wow.
And my mom didn't have a say-so. Yeah, and she didn't have a say-so, so she went with my dad, and
wow.
And they had us kids.
And how old was she again?
She was I want to, you know what, I really don't know. She was
young though.
Young, yeah.
Yeah.
I would say about anywhere from 14, 15, maybe 16 years old.
Wow.
My dad was older, but anyway, she used to tell us they eventually got separated because he was drinking, and he became abusive, and sad. She left him after she had 3 of us, and anyway, she always used to tell us, when I first met your dad, I used to think he was the ugliest man.
Poor girl. She's like, I had to marry him.
And she didn't have to say so, but you know what? In the end, it was that, she had beautiful kids out of it.
Absolutely, she did.
And after they became separated, they continued to know each other and correspond, and we continued to visit and this stuff as much as we can. And as the tradition carries on, they were no longer husband and wife. They became more like brothers and sisters, so they'd visit with each other, and we could tease them, and I could tease them about things like this too, so
gave you the right to.
Yeah, and then in the meantime, my dad got remarried to a Nellie, and she used to go and we called her mother too, and stuff like that. But my mom would be there, and we'd all tease each other. They'd all tease each other, so there was no animosity towards each other, so that was all put aside. Mm-hmm. As we were told too, as a man, I was told that you would go to the ladies' side, and you would go and help out that family and this stuff, but you would never forget your mom. You'd go back and help, but your first duties was to your wife and her side of the family and your kids, and then you go back and help your mom out. And if you ever got a separation, everything would go to that lady that you married, no matter what,
Yeah.
And you didn't have that dispute. Everything would go to her. You would only get back, go back home with what you came with, which basically your clothes and this stuff. Everything else would belong to that lady if it was done traditionally.
Wow.
So.
Wow. Interesting.
Yeah. So it was pretty good.
I like that there was harmony among your family, even though there was the separation between your parents. It's great.
So it's fun. I think I had a pretty remarkable upbringing, and I was able to see both sides, and I was able to get educated, and I was able to live a happy medium in a sense, so.
Yeah. And you found your way on your own. I mean, obviously with the support of your wife. I mean, I love that she basically was like, here's the line. You got to pick a side. And then you did it.
Yeah, and I love her to this day. And, I guess I could say there is not another lady in this whole world that could ever match my wife. And that's just how I feel, If something was to ever happen to her, I wouldn't try to go and find someone else, because she's given me all this, and it's I don't want to go and lose that memory, and I wouldn't want to go and hurt my grandkids or my kids,
Aww. He loves you, Daisy.
Yeah, I love her, and she knows that. I tell her all the time.
Oh, so. I love that. So you talked a little bit about your parents, and then what about your grandparents? Did you know them growing up?
Yeah, we were raised around with them a lot. My grandfather, like I said, was a he was a medicine man, and
right.
He was. People would come all time of the nights, all time of the day, and they would come after him, and he would always leave with them. He's, he had his own little hogan, and my grandmother had her own little house, and he had his hogan. A hogan's a dirt floor, wooden and mud house. There's nothing modern about it. And anyway, he had everything precise where he wanted it and how he wanted it in his medicine bag in a certain area, and he had everything covered in plastic pretty much so that dust and dirt wouldn't go and get it dirty,
Yeah.
Nobody went in there except for business, and he would live there. When it was time to eat or whatever, he'd always come back up to the house and eat with us, and then go back to his area and this stuff, So
wow,
it was pretty neat.
So he was probably seen as a wise person.
Yeah. And he had a favorite horse when I was growing up. He had a favorite horse, and he would I was always crying around about wanting to ride that horse, and no, he'd be telling us, no, you can't, that's your grandfather's horse, It doesn't know anybody except him. So eventually they let me ride it, feeling sorry for me. So I rode that horse, and it started bucking with me after a while. And I got thrown with it and popped my knee out of place. And
oh, no.
My dad went and got me on the back of the truck and popped it back into place. And
ow.
I received a Navajo name at that time. It was called Ishkibitnal, so that's like the boy who gets bucked. That was the name that I earned that day. And when I was growing up, all the way through high school and this stuff, that's how my grandmother knew me. She'd say that, is that the boy who gets bucked, as I was growing up. So that's how they knew me. And then my dad had a name for me too. His name, he used to call me Ishkiyajahoki, which in a sense I understand meant like I was a fearful little boy. I guess when I was small I might have gotten afraid of something. So he always used to call me that too. So I had them names. And then when I had my ceremonial done in our enemy way, I got my warrior name too, but I cannot, I guess, share it with anybody except my immediate family, because that's my strength and my protection. And if I was ever to get sick and went back to the medicine man, we would use that for our strength to go and regain my health and this stuff.
Yeah.
And so it's pretty sacred and held on to. And I don't know, part of the teachings too was my grandfather always used to have a bunch of arrowheads for different reasons and singings. But when I went into the military, I had some prayers and singings done, and the medicine woman gave me an arrowhead. put it on my dog tags and said, hey, this is your protection. This is your shield when you go to the military. Always have it around you because it's going to bring you back home safe, and you stay holy for 4 days and stuff. There's a lot of do not do. One of those things is cutting. Doing stuff like that. Maybe red meat and blood and stuff like that. There's a lot of little things that you can't do. Well, I sort of went against that. One of my sons, that he was just a little guy, and at that time those cereal boxes used to have those Ninja Turtles, and during that ceremonial time, I was being holy, and he said, "Dad," he's a little guy. He said, "Dad, can you cut this out for me? I want these cards." And I got that scissor and cut, and boy, it just hit me. I said, "Oh man, I'm not supposed to do this." So I just said prayers about it and this stuff. Well, the very next happening, and I want to say later on that morning, the back of my pickup truck, the camper, it's got that doorway.
Yeah.
And it sort of, for some reason, was halfway open. And as I came around that back into the truck, I ran right into it across my cheek. And it cut me just a little bit. And that blood is supposed to be against things. So I immediately told that medicine man, because they were still there, and had some prayers and ceremonial done and this stuff. And that lady said, it was a medicine woman. She said, Ebin Kutza, because you cut that, it happened. It's warning you. That's how powerful this prayer and singing is. So I had to be even more holier then too, and stuff like that. So I believe in that stuff, and we were raised that way. So it was pretty crazy. And then I had a dream at that time that I was out on the battlefield on the desert, and there was a berm out there, and in that dream there was like a big old palace or building with 4 pillars, and there was a ledge on that pillar and a big old arched doorway, and I was laying on the desert floor. I had my mother laying next to me, and we had a M60 machine gun or a 50 cal, and on that sand berm all my other soldiers were behind her, but my mom and I were out in the open. And when those enemies came out on that ledge, they were out there, they laid down, and we started engaging each other. Well, I used that machine gun, I fired, and I was watching where my rounds were hitting until I got to that ledge, that level where the enemy was.
Yeah.
I fired and I started strafing them. I hit their leader in the leg, and when I hit that leader in the leg, they all went back to that doorway, out of harm's way, and then I woke up.
Interesting.
Well, I told that medicine woman, and she told me, she goes, that's telling you that no matter what happens, you're always going to be protected on that battlefield. That's why your mom was there. That's why we weren't behind the berms. And that enemy left, And you think about that. We fought the battles against Saddam Hussein, and we defeated him, but we didn't go and take him then.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
all that
true.
Correlates what my dream was all about.
So interesting.
Yeah, I think it is.
Wow.
So it was pretty good. So,
wow.
that's just some of the things that we were raised with and which we believe and stuff like that. So.
Yeah. If you could go back and live there and be able to do what you want to do, teach at a boarding school and all that, would you like to be surrounded in that area by your culture and all that? Is it hard to be away from it?
I had a lot of opportunities to do that. I was asked to go back to Wingate, my school I graduated from, but I wanted to be away from, I guess, my people and the surroundings and stuff. And I wanted to see new life and opportunities in different ways and maybe help other people too.
Yeah.
So I'm still at a boarding school. I'm still surrounded by Native Americans, and I still teach them. And I think that there are a lot more people out here in in Oklahoma and a lot of other places. They have lost a lot of their upbringing, their traditional beliefs and ways. More influenced by modern times and stuff. And I grew up speaking their language, and we still do that. And out here, a lot of these younger people don't do that. I hate to say that, and they're losing more and more of it. But that's why I try to teach or tell them, hey, go and learn your ways. Seek your grandparents. Ask them what this means, or ask them where they come from. And many different things like that. And I give them examples of my life, and I, say things to them, just like my simple thing of introducing myself. I tell them the meaning behind that. And something that I do, and my grandkids and my kids grew up doing, when the winter came and the snow fell, we always go rolling around. My dad would always take us out there in our underwear, roll us around, say a prayer to the Creator above and this stuff. And we were little kids, and we'd be crying and go inside. We'd just dry off. We let towel go and dry us off. And it was conditioning us to be men and warriors, and also to get the Creator above to go look down upon you and know who you are and help you and give you strength. So I raised my kids that way, and to this day I still do that. My grandkids will take pictures when they do stuff like that too. They'll roll around in the snow and stuff.
I love that.
So it's good. And I tell these students of mine these things, and I say, you need to carry on these traditions. Learn why you're doing this. And this is how I was raised. This is how I raised my kids. This is how they're raising their kids.
Exactly.
And it's a lot of different things like that. So
you're doing good work here.
I hope so.
I think you are. And I mean, I'm inspired. I think that probably on a daily basis, you're probably helping your students in probably more way than one. So thanks for what you do.
Yeah. Well, I'm grateful that I'm here at Riverside. I think that, especially right now at pandemic time, we have some leadership that our administrators are doing the best they can. They're adhering to what the government's telling them to do and dictating them what to do and how to do it and how much we can do and everything else. Basically with their hands tied, but yet they're giving us an opportunity to continue to work with our students, and we're reaching out, virtually, working with them, get on the phones or get on Zoom and try to help them that way, and hopefully continue to be successful in their lives and understand the importance of education, So.
Well, and you're a good example. I mean, we're here in Oklahoma today at Riverside, and it is really hot outside, in my opinion. And James came back and he was like, yeah, I went for a run earlier today. I was like, in this heat? And he said, yes. And you survived it.
Yeah. I grew up running, and whether I was in New Mexico or here in Oklahoma or wherever I was going to school and running on a scholarship. And
True.
I went and focused my time to do a lot of my training anywhere from 10 o'clock to about 3 o'clock in the afternoon during the heat of the day. And I always had this belief that it would make me a stronger, better runner. And I do believe that too. And I recall a race in Wichita State University, and the temperature was like 104 degrees, I think it was. And we ran 4 miles at that time because of the heat. And I ended up winning it. And needless to say, the people, as they were finishing, a lot of them were affected by it, and I think like 8 to 12 of them were transported to the hospital with the ambulance because of the heat.
Yeah.
But I wasn't really bothered by it because I had been conditioned, and so
that's great.
It didn't really bother me. And I tell these kids the same thing, and my wife gets on to me about that. I might mow the lawn or go work during the heat of the day. She'd get mad. You're not young anymore, Get here or drink water.
Maybe it is keeping you young, though.
Yeah, but it's good, I'm pretty aware of my surroundings and what I can tolerate and stuff like that too.
Yeah. So. Kudos to you. I used to be able to do it too, and now that I've gotten so far away from it, I don't know if it's ever coming back. So Navajo is like no other native language that I am like. It doesn't sound like the native languages I hear all the time, like the Kiowa and the Apache and Comanche, Choctaw. It's very, very different.
Well, you know what? Those Kiowas are wanting to be like Navajos. Speaking. I didn't see you up there, Mr. I just said that. But you know what?
You know those Kiowa. Especially half Kiowa, half Comanche.
Something I failed to mention too is that as I was growing up, I used to sit around as these old Navajo code talkers used to talk. And I'd sit there and play, and they'd be telling stories, you know. I wish I would have had the knowledge or sense enough to record some of their stories and this stuff. But as a young kid, I didn't understand the importance of it. And they'd be playing and drinking and crying, and I'd go and look at them and wonder why they were doing this. And I had little green army men, and one time I was playing with the green army men. And I had a flashlight, and we, like I said, we had kerosene lamps. We didn't have electricity.
Yeah.
So the light was sort of dim, and I had a flashlight. And I was going across that rug against my army soldiers, and man, all of a sudden, I just got slapped in the back of my head real hard, and they got mad at me. And I started to cry as a little kid. I couldn't understand that, but as I grew up and realized that those were bringing back memories of those code talkers, and I guess they had a spotlight somewhere along the way, you know, and it snapped that person back, and he said, you know, don't be playing like that, you know, and stuff like that. And I used to have a couple of uncles, Albert and Benny, and they were veterans too, and I always used to feel sorry for them because I'd see them around Gallup drinking and this stuff, and Albert was wounded and had crutches and this stuff, and Benny, my uncle, would tell me, the first time I heard that was, old soldiers never die, they just fade away. And I was always proud of my uncles that way too, you know. So yeah, but I grew up with them, and I had Mr. Evans as my Pee Wee League coach, and he was a code talker. I used to play with some Smileys that lived across at Church Rock, you know, and their dad was code talker. And when I go back home, I go visit a Frank Walletto, and he was a medicine man and did a lot of prayers for us, and he's a code talker and stuff like that too. So they were all around, and I had a grandfather that was a code talker too. So
really, yeah. What was your grandfather's name?
The name Lemuel Yazzie.
How do you spell that?
Lemuel.
Oh, Lemuel.
Lemuel Yazzie, Yazzie. So
that just came to your mind last minute, right?
Yeah, it did.
That's amazing.
It just never dawned on me.
Yeah. Well, you've kind of sprinkled in some really good words of wisdom throughout our conversation. Is there anything here that you'd officially like to share with myself or others as words of wisdom for us?
Well, the only thing that really comes to mind is, I guess, spirituality. Remember that we're Native American people. We've always been spiritual. We always had the Creator above, Mother Earth that's provided for us, and the Creator above looking down, blessing us. If we can return back to them ways and be spiritual, we can go farther in life, not only ourselves, but our family and our people. Mm-hmm. Be proud of who we are, where you came from, and seek wisdom from the elders and have that respect. And another thing, respect your warriors or your veterans. They did these things not only for our people, but for the whole United States. And there would be no other place in the world that I would want to live except here in the United States. I went to Iraq. I seen a lot of things, and I seen a lot of life that, you know, the hardships that they go through too, and we have opportunities. We can't be making excuses, you know, blaming things. We're going to go as far as we want to go. That's up to you totally, but always remember the Creator above and who you are. Be strong in that manner.
It's beautiful. Thank you. I definitely will take that to heart. Well, thanks for spending some time with me today, James. We had this impromptu meeting, and I feel so blessed that you took some time out of your day to do this with me. So, yakuki.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah. When you're leaving, you would say something like "Hakone." It's not,
Hakone.
yeah, Hakone. It's not really a goodbye, but it's the same.
Right here at Chickasha Wings, we teach people to fly. We've got 11 airplanes, 9 flight instructors, and about 5 mechanics. We turn out about 80 new certificates or ratings each year. And we train pilots who now fly at the major airlines. They fly for the Air Force, the FAA, for private jets. We even have a few missionary pilots. Our customers come from all over the United States. Here at Chickasha, we're able to provide lower costs, a more focused training program, and we're able to provide a higher level of customer service. My favorite thing about this business is helping people, because I see people go from not knowing anything about it to being an airline pilot. Come out here and learn to fly.
Thanks for listening to Native Chalk Talk. Be sure to join our community on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and LinkedIn. Simply search for Native Chalk Talk. That's Native, CHOCTALK. And check us out at nativechalktalk.com. Stay tuned for the next episode. You're going to love it. Yakoki. Thank you, my friends.